All right, guys, let's get into a frog pose now. So, knees are going to be quite wide for this. For the most part, this floor is quite soft, but for the most part, you will need to get a mat or a blanket and pop it underneath your knees. So I want to keep them in line with the hips, so not too far forward, not too far back. And then you can see that my feet, so the inside of my feet are going flat to the ground. So here, I definitely even need a mat for this, not a mat, a blanket. So that's much easier, it just feels comfortable. There we go. And then just come out in front. Should feel like inside the thigh, excuse me. Should feel it inside the thighs, and just relax. Lovely stretch. A couple more brief breaths, about 3 or 4. And just slowly coming out now. And again, moving those knees together nice and slow. And into a reset position again. Okay, we're going to go into a single leg straddle. So I'm going to keep my right leg straight and then bend my left knee. Left knee. And then I'll get a blanket or a mat underneath my left butt cheek. And I'm going to almost like sit down on it. So both my hip bones are on the floor, touching the ground. So you may need to adjust again. I want to feel it in the front of that thigh. So similar to that regular straddle where we use both sides, this is a favoured one for me, only because it's much easier to get out. Number one, really. Plus, I kind of get a minute and a half to however long I'm holding it for, a little bit more focus on each side. Again, if you need to adjust, adjust. Not in any kind of pain. Last 3 breaths. And then just push down from the hands and slowly pull that left leg out, and we'll swap sides. So bending that right knee, then get that blanket, get up onto that bar. I was saying in the previous take before I messed up that I never really used this blanket before in this position, in the single leg straddle, and it always just hurt my knee. And I think the props definitely get underutilized in stretching, so especially when you're starting out and you're quite new to stretching, it's really important to grab some props. And it don't have to be these are yoga blocks, but it don't have to be these. You can see this, it can be a book, anything. The other pages, don't know if you get those anymore. Blankets, you can get all sorts. Pillows, lots to work with. Okay, so they are cheap to buy on eBay or whatever, but you don't need them. 4 breaths to go. deep breath. And slowly come out of that. And do your reset pose. Whatever that may be. I'm not going to start thinking about like that. Back out. Next, we're going to do a dragon's pose. So, or lizard, I mean there's about a million different words for this. So, I'm going to start with my left foot up to the outside of my left hand. Okay, now again, lots of different options for you. You can have your hand out like so your knee comes out wide. You can come upright, okay, or you can add a twist in. Again, want to do whatever works for you, okay? You can also push the knee out with the thigh, so push the thigh with your hand. You see that the sole of my foot has come up, and that's okay as long as, again, it feels comfortable. This is a good one for me. Going into that inside thigh, into that lower back as well, into that psoas. Last couple of breaths. And then your next out breath, just slowly relax. Ooh, I really like that one. It's one of my faves. And again, if you want to shake it out in any way, just come out, push down, whatever feels good for you. And then swap this right side. Get set up in a position that works. Remember, we always look at, really, if we're going to be here for 90 seconds, giving ourselves somewhere to go. So like I said, 80%, but you could work 30 seconds in this position, 30 seconds pushing, 30 seconds up. It's up to you. Like for example, in a lot of classes, we always talk about, oh, you must do the same side, and it's got to look exactly the same. But for example, for me, that left side, I need to get into that first to open up the hip. Whereas this one, I actually need to get into the hip flexor here a little bit more as well. And this really helps open up the hip for that hip extension. So we've got about 4 or 5 deep breaths to go. So again, I'm going to move down, push that knee out a little bit. Last breath. And then come down into a mini reset position, whichever one you like. All right, next we're going to do a melting heart or a puppy pose, loads of different names for it. So I'm going to start with my knees roughly around hip width apart. Okay, again, you need to adjust accordingly, but the hips stay over the knees. I'm going to tuck the tailbone up into the air. Almost like sticking my tailbone up. Hands go out in front, and then the head comes through the shoulders, and then we relax the head on the ground. So main areas, maybe in the lower back where we've done that little tilt, but also mainly in those shoulders and the top part of your back. One of my favourite stretches. About 4 more deep breaths. Last breath. Not ever, but slowly coming out of this stretch now. Ooh, that's a good one. And again, reset however you like. So I've done this, so I like to open up my chest this way.